It's step number 7 time. Step number 7 is actually stitching down in the waist casing. Now, I want to make a notation, and I did talk to you all in the P14A about inserting the elastic, and we did do it just like this one is saying, leaving an opening. But our pant doesn't need an opening to put it in because we have 2 buttonholes that we're going to feed everything through and then have a drawstring at the end to actually tie it. So when it says that we're going to stitch around, we're going to first do some pressing and etc. But the big notation is I've marked out leaving an opening. We're not leaving any openings anywhere on this because we already have the actual openings through the buttonholes. I do want to make comment again that at this point, even before we did step 6, this is that point where you should be, those of you who were concerned, and you know who you are, that the rise wasn't quite right and maybe you wanted a little more taken off of it, and we've held off putting the buttonholes in. Now would be the time that you would slip that pant on, use a belt or a tie or whatever, a piece of elastic to just hold it around your waist where you want it to be, knowing that it's going to fold down, right? But that's not your waist. Your waist is somewhere in here, about 1.5 inches down, so that you can determine, do I want to take some more off the top? It will kind of affect some of your pocket opening. You do have a little ways to work here, right? And in all honesty, if you wanted to do that before we stitch the side seams, we could have done that too. And I will put that notation in step before step number 3, that there is a point where you could also do that. Okay, so now back at home, we are getting ready to put in our casing. So the first thing that it says to do is to turn the upper edge of the garment to inside along the fold line. Well, where is that fold line? If we go back and look on the pattern, we shall find it. So I've gotten the pattern in front of me, and we should see that seam, there's the fold line for the waist, and that casing is the 1.5 inches. Just like we did on the sample, which that was the same thing. We had 1.5 inches area of fabric that was considered the fold down casing. Well, in this particular instruction, they're wanting you to turn it all inside and press that top edge and then come back and do 1/4 inch. It's very hard to make that nice and even after it's been pressed one place, and then to come in, what they're saying is they want you to press this down the 1.5 inches on that fold line and then come in and figure out this. Well, it's much, much easier if we do that 1/4 inch press and turn now. And if we take 1/4 inch, just like I was showing you on before, if we take 1/4 inch away from 1.5, that's 1/4, 2/8. And if we slide that down, that means that our fold is 1.25 inches, not 1.5 inches when we get ready to do it. All right, so let's do our little 1/4 inch all the way around using our pressing gauge. And and up to that 1/4 inch. Now be aware, we added that 3/8 the other day to your pressing gauge. Make sure that you know which line is which so that you won't have a problem when you get ready to do the next turn and it's in your buttonholes, because we want our buttonholes to be something like this, not like that. Oh, and we're not even on the camera. Sorry. We want our 1/4 inch to be put in, and when we get to that point, when we turn the next 1.25 inches, we want our buttonholes to be like this. We don't want them to be folded like that. So it's much neater if you go around and just press the 1/4 inch first. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll meet you back here. So I am back, and I have pressed that 1/4 inch all the way around. Right? Let's scoot back out just a little bit here. All right. So now, if you remember in the portfolio, I actually clipped these before we kind of like, the bottom ones I wanted left, but this is now going to get folded in and under. And just at this point, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of some of this extra thread so that it doesn't catch up on anything. Just as a good precaution. And I would go around and do that on all of it. But now we are going to press under that 1.25 inches. So we'll find where that is. Bring this up to it. And it's right there. And why I want to show you this where the buttonhole is, because you can see it's right at the top of this. And that is what's supposed to be there. That is how it's going to happen. Especially since you're putting in 1 inch elastic, right? I actually have made mine for 3/4 inch elastic because that's what I had. So I am actually going to take this back just a hair bit, and I'm probably going to do just over 1 inch, because then I can still stitch underneath this, but my elastic will fit tighter into the casing. Okay, I'm going to press that around, and then I'll see you after that. Okay, refocusing there. All right, now I'm back. I have pressed it under the 1/4 inch, right, that I showed you. And then I have come along and done a scant 1.25 inches. It's closer to 1 1/8, like I said, because I have a narrower elastic, not 1 inch wide, that's going to go through there. So the next step that it says, the next part of number 7, is to stitch, press, and stitch. And they meant this bottom edge first. So it's really important that we are even here and that you get this press smooth, that your seams are matching up, right? On your side seam right there, that's matching up there, so that it isn't pulled askew. And then you want it to be even, because as you're going to stitch here from this side, you want it to be nice and neat from this side. Even, not going all over the place. All right. So, what do I do to stitch that? As we discussed before, I'm going to do in my critical places, like keeping that one there. I'm going to go over here, make sure that a pin goes in here, and then I'm not pulling now in between. So I'm going to then lay back flat in here, and now I'm going to put a pin here. And remember, we could put the pins in sideways if we wanted. I just find that I'm safer when I do it this way, at first anyway, to get it pinned. Because when I'm doing it this way, there is a tendency to pull and roll. So if I'm laying it flat and doing it flat, you can see that it happens to stay nicer than if I try to pin it like this. There is a possibility that it gets pulled. It may look like it's okay, but it starts to get pulled. So I always like to come in and do this so that I know that it is flat. Okay, I'm going to continue to pin it, and then I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to stitch all the way around, and I'm going to start in the back so that my back stitching will be kind of hidden by the gathering that happens. I'm not going to start on a big lump. In fact, I'm going to start to one side of it, one of these sides, probably to be this one, stitch around and over that little lump of all of those seams in there, folded on, and then come up over it and then stop. There is no opening left in this. So you're going to stitch around and meet yourself back where you started, and you'll close it with a little back stitch. And then, while you're at the machine, the next stitching is the upper edge. That one where if we've got one here, we're going to do it about 1/8 of an inch, no more than 1/8 of an inch. It is kind of on the edge, but you also don't want it so close that it rolls off. So about 1/8 of an inch away. And remember that you want to draw those in the same direction, because if I start here and then I'm pushing it this way, but now I start there and I push it that way, you can start to get the fabric doing something like this, opposite each other, and then you'll get buckles when you try to get it back smooth. Okay, I'll meet you when I have it done. So I'm back, having stitched down first the lower and then up and across the top. All my basting is still in place, and we're ready to move to step 8. See you then.